So what's going on here is that we're just using the pitches from this first top row here, and here's our output, and we're on the one time. So, and we're coming into this thing here, and we're going to use this 2600A because it's not part of the 55 family, which is quite a specialized kit. This is an example of how you can use this sequencer with any piece of gear if you're willing to make certain concessions. So here's the voltage out from that top row, and we've just split it up so that it's driving the keyboard CV of each of these three oscillators. And I picked this 2600 because it's got three oscillators and this has three traffic lanes. But we're just going to send the same note, each step note voltage, out to all three. And I'm not even using number one. I was, but I'm not. So we're just listening to oscillator 2 and 3, and they're tuned slightly differently. So if I try and stop this, so now it's just stopped on that one note. So that's the idea there. Okay, so the output of the 2600 is coming into this. I'm just using this Akai to monitor it. It's not playing notes or doing anything. It's just kind of a pass-through. Oh, yeah, the gate. Fine, so here we go. I'm going to turn this up again. And if I pull this gate out, we get nothing. So I'm using this second row of voltages as the gate for this thing, because it won't go without a gate. And here's on the 2600, here's one way that you can make it fire. There's another way where you multiply this and then put it in here and put it in here and take that out and put it somewhere else. Too complicated. This, you just put this switch. So that's now your gate. But the point here is that this 960, it's not just to make oscillator notes. It's not just to make pitch. You can do what you want with it. So the second row now is gates. And if we look, this is 1 times the top row, but the secondary row is actually jacked up to 8 or to 4 times, which is 8 volts. And I think the 2600 is looking for somewhere between 5 and 10 volts to trigger the gate. And the weird thing about gates is that I always thought if a gate was either open or closed, but that's not the case. The amount of voltage that goes to whatever gate input you're using it could be for a module like this or one of these things or these things, whatever the module you're inputting the gate to responds slightly differently. So the gate, at least on this 2600, if we were to put this down a notch, see, there's not enough voltage to run the gate on that. So now we got to turn it up. And now we've got a gate of sorts. If we had yet more voltage, we would get a louder sound. So the gate isn't just open or closed. It's actually determining how loud the oscillator output actually ends up being, which can be, and how loud it is of course how saturated or overdriven or underdriven or whatever. So that all plays a part. So the other thing is when we've got this second row going, we can adjust these voltage outputs, because again, if you have it on one like this one, that's only 4 volts there. So these are kind of almost not quite tickled enough to keep the gate open properly. So what can happen, let me turn this up. We can accent a note. And if I turn this too much, you'll hear it. In fact, you can make it skip a note. out. The other thing is that this whole thing is a threefer. You get 3 rows. A threefer kind of for all time. You can't like start row 1 and then start row 2 on a different step and then have these run all at the same time. They're always in sync, da-da-da, these 3 and then this 3 and then this 3. So you can't like stagger the different rows. You can, however, send row 2 or 3 out to something else and has a clock divider, so they're only firing half the time, but they're always going to be locked into the incremental step. These are all timed together. You can't use these rows of 8 independently of each other. Well, that's about it for